were just assuming that call center manager is handling the reps. They know how important this is, but we didn't have the capacity to be able to measure those things before we hired our data scientists. So we've seen the efficiencies go up in the call center and the marketing because of that.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Build to Win podcast. I'm Jonathan Weinberg, and I'm here as always with my co-host, John Kolbaska. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about data, the data in your CRM, managing the quality of the data, making sure that you can get the most accurate types of reporting and insights out of your data, and also utilize that and make sure that that accuracy is going to help you drive results and get the maximum value from all of your leads and be able to continue to scale and grow. Well, this is something that I have quite a bit of familiarity with, and John, I think you do as well. So
I've run the business. I've seen how inputs that you put into the CRM can affect the business. I tell people all the time, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out reports, right? So many of us are relying on these reports to be able to make business decisions in key areas like marketing and sales and stuff like that. And if you're not reporting the data accurately that's going in, you're getting bad data out.
Not just about the reporting, right? Obviously, that's incredibly important, and having good quality data in to get the data good data out. But it's especially in your marketing and sales funnel, you always want your leads to be in the right place at the right time so that you can have the right types of communications going out at the right time and manage that.
With the automations that are built in.
With automations, honestly, it's like regardless if you're doing it manually or automatically, if you don't know what the latest is, like the latest story or the latest activity or the where that lead stands within your process, within your workflow, it's really hard to communicate with them and to get them to move to that next step of the funnel, right? So it's not just the data quality, and it's not just the reporting and the insights you get out of that. It's also just an operational thing as well. It's really important to have good data, quality data, up-to-date data.
On the marketing side in Build a Prime, we have some of those text messaging and email automation features in the marketing and the sales, and even in the production funnel. I've seen customers email back that we've sold jobs and they're still sitting in the marketing funnel, right? They're sitting in there and they're getting marketing messages, and they'll respond back to the email confused, like, hey, we already did business with you. What are you talking about coming to my home? You've done that already. So if you're not moving it accurately through the funnel, you'll confuse customers. Obviously, it's just constantly reminding the staff that it's part of their process, that they need to be double checking that every single day.
With Builder Prime, I try to do that through automation to the highest extent possible, right? But not everything can be fully, it doesn't always know exactly what happened if whatever activity didn't travel through the system, it won't know that, of course.
We set up custom statuses for our business. I mean, you have the flexibility to do that with Builder Prime that unfortunately you just can't automate. You do automate many of them, right? When a contract is sold, it moves it into the production department, it moves it, but we have jobs sold and we have measure scheduled, measure complete, job ordered, material received, job scheduled, job complete. So we have all of those different buckets, those statuses just inside the production funnel.
Right.
So
right.
Many of them do move, but some of them you have to move over manually.
One of the most frustrating things that I see sometimes, like we try to help our customers with this all the time, but we follow an ordered workflow, right? An ordered funnel, and it starts at the top with the new inquiry, or we often call it lead received. And, it should flow next to, appointment set, and then to issued lead, and then to demo, and then to sale. And then you've got your production side of it. You have to pay attention to things like the order of these funnels, right? Or the order of these stages within your funnel. Sometimes we'll see somebody add a new stage in there. They want to customize it, right? And they'll say, it doesn't qualify out of area. And they'll add that new status, and it'll be sitting down at the bottom, like all the way at the end of the funnel. And then go manually move somebody into that. And then the system thinks like they had a successful appointment set, and they had a successful, demo and a sold job. And then, you get incorrect reporting. Automation is one of those key things that you really need to be able to keep things up to date and accurate, because when you have the humans manually adjusting the data, that's where you get the most problems.
We assign the task to typically the department head, right? Or whoever's running that department. And it's part of their responsibility to make sure that is moving through accurately when it needs to be manually done. Unfortunately, they're humans. They sometimes make mistakes. So, yeah, I'm taking back to like when I was a $1 million company. This didn't apply to me because you were working with me at the time. You were real particular about moving those things through, especially on the manual side. But for most companies, you start out answering the phones yourself, you're doing all of those things, and then you hand that off to somebody, you train them, you kind of see some breakdowns there, and then you start hiring people in a department like the call center, and then there's a department head, assign that to the department head. And as you grow, you see those things get fixed, and then they break. You typically see that because I'm real particular about the data, the reporting. We got to that point. I hired an outside VA in the Philippines, I think, and I made it her job to specifically check the statuses as they're moving through the funnel, the manual statuses, to double check all the paperwork and stuff like that. So that helped us with that process. And then after that, I actually hired an actual who I have working with me now. I don't think many companies have this, but I have a data scientist. So now he's creating even other automations on the back end, which we'll talk about what is it? Bolt Insights?
Yeah. So that's our new AI advanced reporting business intelligence tool that we're rolling out inside of Builder Prime.
But Steven, my data scientist, he owns all of the data. He looks to make sure that he's automating it on the back end, what can't be automated in Builder Prime. He's setting up all the different features to communicate with, because there's lots of things we use outside of Builder Prime too, like even talking to like Google AdWords, right? Like getting the data we're looking for. It's talking about a GSLI ID to be able to communicate back to Google so we can tell Google what is a good lead, what is not a good lead. So we have him managing all that, but he is solely responsible for the whole company now. And that's his job, to just manage and curate the data every single day. And then when we go into our IND meeting on Monday, he presents all the data to us.
When did you hire Steven?
I hired Steven third quarter of last year. You typically know your business and you're like, wait, that doesn't look right. And then you go in, you're like, oh, this person forgot to update this status. And it's just, there's so many things to do.
What made you think to hire a data scientist? Is that the job description that you put out? Was like, oh, I need a data scientist? Or did you just say, oh, I need somebody to keep better track of my data? And
we were discussing this position for probably close to a year, that we needed a person to manage our data. We had our managers handling their departments. And, they look, to be fair, they get busy, right? They got dealing with customers, dealing with employees. There's going to be some things that are going to slip through, right? Naturally, it's human nature, right? So, but it got to the point where it would frustrate me because I want to be able to go into my 90 meeting weekly with my team, and I want to be able to make sure that what I'm seeing there, what we're seeing there, is accurate so that we can make the right decisions. And yeah, if it's 3%, 4%, 5% off, that can become frustrating. And that's what was starting to happen, is they're busy. They're busy in the day-to-day. They're just going to sometimes forget. So when the time came, like, hey, you know what? I think it's time where we're growing to this point now. We're becoming so complex with all the different pieces that we're building in. There's a layer of complexity. We should hire that data person that we're talking about. I believe it was Brandon. He said, you mean a data scientist? I'm like, that's what it is. And we actually advertised for a data scientist. And we spoke to probably 2 or 3 dozen data scientists. We did 3 rounds of interviews, but on the second round, we started to show them the way we do things. And they just naturally understood that you don't see many data scientists in this industry, but they're in a bunch of other industries apparently. And a lot of these, terms and marketing, it's all similar businesses.
For a $1 to $3 million type of company, it might not necessarily make sense quite yet.
The owner should be managing that at a $1 to $3 million company. Maybe not necessarily doing the tasks, but making sure that it's accurate, having like daily checklists and stuff, just to make sure, double checking the data, stuff like that. I think the owner should be heavily involved in that at the $1 to $3 million. Well, maybe $1 million, it'd probably doing it himself. And you get to that 3 to 5 million, you should have other people doing that for you, but you should be verifying the data is correct. Because as you grow and scale that data, it could become a full-time job. And he's a full-time job. That's why we hired Steven.
You were telling me something just before about something you noticed in the data that was pretty interesting, how you were doing some marketing and targeting. Was that Steven who found this kind of insight?
The first 3 months we came in, we showed Steven how to track the data, set up a lot of the back-end automations, and he started to learn the business, right? So Steven has started to come to us with interesting things. He's starting to run reports. He's starting to see patterns. When he did the budget for 2026 with us, we went back and looked at 3 years worth of data, right? We have good, solid 3 years worth of data, pretty accurate in Build a Prime. So we started to use that. And then now he's starting to do some other things. He's looking at marketing, he's looking at different things. And he came to us about 2 weeks ago. He says, I want you to take a look at this from the marketing. Because now we've tied a lot of his performance to KPIs. We tied the KPIs to the P&L. So he understands like what cost of marketing means in the marketing budget inside of our profit and loss statement, right? So he's starting to look, we built out a profit and loss model. We don't want to spend more than 15%. So when he sees us get up to that 15, 16, 17%, he starts digging. So he came in and he says, I found something interesting. He says, looking back over 3 years worth of marketing data, I noticed that 64 out of the 300 zip codes that we market to makes 90% of our business. And we were spreading that money around pretty evenly. We're spending anywhere between $80,000 to $150,000 a month, depending on the seasonality in the business. We're spreading it around evenly to 300. We're like, oh my God, I can't believe we've done that.
Right.
So now we're focusing in on the 64 zip codes. We're going to test another 9 or 10 that look promising. But if we had just advertised to those 73 zip codes, looking at the numbers, we would have generated more leads. Even if we generated the same amount of leads, our closing rate would have been up 10 points what it was company-wide. We would have generated more revenue.
And sometimes you need to get a level deeper than what you would normally look at.
We were just basically just throwing money out there, spraying and praying, broad campaign. And we live in a large market. There's 3.2 million homes in those 300 zip codes. The problem is we were getting the reach, but we're getting very little frequency, right? So it's better to target the 64 or 73 zip codes that we're looking at with the same budget. We'll get a smaller reach, but these are our clients. They've done business with us. And then in those markets, obviously, people gather together, people that are like them. If we can increase that frequency from probably less than 1 to 3, 4, 5, or 6, we can start to build brand recognition or even just generate more leads in those markets. Those are the customers we want.
Or let's say you're targeting this smaller set of zip codes. Which types of systems or platforms you can target to just those specific zip codes, right?
Yeah, so we track it. We have call tracking, phone numbers. We have other software for the people that come off the website, what converts. We have a couple different pieces of software. We get about an 80% accuracy rate as to how we're receiving these inbound inquiries. And we just realized like, oh my God, this is incredible. We've also discovered with Steven is on the marketing side, he came to us probably about a month before that. And he says, look, he goes, I want you to look at speed to lead. He's like, our average speed to lead from the moment we receive, if it's not inbound and we answer the phone, if it goes into our database, Build a Prime, you didn't have a report for this, but you track it because the data's there, right? When the lead was recorded and then we dial from it, it says, when it was set, when it was the initial phone call was made, we have those 2 moments in time that can track. He says, our average speed to lead is, we're preaching all along, like, hey, you got to get to the customer under a minute, right? We don't have a report for that. So we're assuming lead comes in, they get on the phone, they're calling it, right? Yeah, they're calling certain lead sources quickly, but the lead aggregators that were getting stuff, the call centers decided those are junk, they don't call them. Our average speed to lead before it was discovered, before we started tracking it, was like 44 minutes. That's terrible. So then we started tracking it, and we went into the call center and said, look, we're going to track this now. We need to get this under a minute, and ideally 30 seconds. We've got that down. It hovers between 30 and 40 seconds every single day. We track that day. We share it with the call center, the manager. We hold them accountable to it. It's transparent. It's there. And our appointment set rate went from 22% now to like around 40%, 40, 42. So we basically setting double the amount of raw leads because he went in and discovered that.
One thing I'm Curious about you. It sounds like your call center is maybe some of the leads that come in based on the source.
Of course, yeah, they're
And like, I
prejudging.
don't
Yeah.
want to call certain ones.
Those are no good. Yeah, they'll hit the CRM, build a prime. They'll look at it and they'll just skip over. Yeah, and then someone will eventually come around and call it, but usually about 44 minutes later. And then he started digging deeper, and then we started looking at speed to lead issued. And we all know this. Like, I've sat in all the conferences, Accelerate, Tony Hody's conferences, Top 500. You got to get in the home either same day or next day, at least 72 hours or less. And once it goes beyond 72 hours, there's a higher likelihood that it'll cancel. It sells at a lower rate. So we're telling everybody, like, hey, let's book same days, next days, but we weren't tracking it. There was no report for it. There will be now with Bolt Insights, but we were able to track it outside of Build a Prime. We noticed that we were running 70, sometimes 72 hours out. And every time we got beyond 36 hours, we had a higher cancellation rate and we had a lower closing rate. So we've discovered that the sweet spot is 36 hours. And what we do is when we go beyond 48, we start to really look at, hey, let's pull back some of these maybe secondary and tertiary lead providers because we're getting too busy basing on obviously our sales capacity. But that'll tell you if you're going beyond your sales capacity, which is the next thing we discovered is a booking rate, but I'll get to that. When it gets out above 36 hours, the closing rates start coming down. Cost of marketing goes up. So we are constantly monitoring that every single day. 36 hours, speed to lead issue starts to go up. Okay, we're watching it. Gets up 48, but then we start pulling some of this marketing money back. We hold it on the side. We store it for a busier month. It's like the old cell phone plans with the rollover minutes, Johnny.
Yeah.
You put it on the side, we'll spend it, right?
Call center is getting comped on appointment set, but they're also getting comped on demos. What happens when that lead comes in, you call them, you get them on the phone, they're like, no, I can't meet until next week at least. All right. So get me on the calendar for next Friday.
It's not that simple. There's a whole qualifying process, John, right? Like at the end of the day, we're trying to meet with all parties, right? So before we even choose a date, we're trying to get the customer to commit to getting them and whoever else is making this decision to be home for our appointment. We know that, and we also track that too. Stephen tracks that. There's a lot of stuff we discovered. We call it an all parties present rate. We don't call it one-leggers, two-leggers, decision makers. So we know that when you look at the all parties, we try to set it, right? So sometimes you have a customer that says, yeah, you know what? I want my husband to be here, but he can't be here if they're calling on a Monday. He can't be here. He works during the week. He gets home late. He can only be here Saturday. We'll let that go. It still has a higher likelihood of canceling or probably canceling. If they confirm, because we confirmed the day before, it's got a higher closing rate. But for the most part, we're encouraging people to bring it in.
You're just looking at your general overall hours. You're going to allow for some outliers to be scheduled.
Around 100 hours, that affects the whole average, yes.
It affects the whole average, but I mean, you're kind of building that into the overall measurement too, right?
Once we start getting above that sweet spot, how many did we have out on the weekend? We go in to Build a Prime, we check the notes. Why was that scheduled out so far? We can pull the call, we can listen. And as long as it's, legitimate, the call center rep didn't shortcut or take any shortcuts and pushed, and it's legitimate, hey, that's where we're going to meet with everybody, then we're okay with that. But we have the controls and stuff like that in place to be able to look at those things, right? Those different options.
You were going to say something about your booking rate you mentioned about before.
So booking rate is tied to sales capacity. Like right now, we have 9 sales reps that are running full time. We have 3 in training, 3 that are graduating this week. So we're going to have 12, 2 per day. Some days they're all working. Some days other reps are off. You're just trying to keep a certain capacity. So let's just use 12 reps as an example on a full day. You give them 2 per day. You have 24 appointments that the call center has to fill that day. But it's not just 24. You need to overbook by 20%. So if you're looking for 24, you're really looking for what's 20% of 24? 28.
29.
28,
29, right? Yeah.
You're going to get some fall off. You're going to get some fall off. You look at that, you set that number to 20% above your sales capacity as a booking rate. And you track that daily, because every time you don't fill that spot, the company's actually lost money. When there's a spot in the calendar that goes unfulfilled, you've lost your NSLI. So if your NSLI is $3,500, the company just lost $3,500. We track that and we bonus on that. The booking rate at being 100% or better. We track and bonus speed of lead issued and speed of lead.
So you got to be able to measure all these things. You got to have the good quality data to be able to measure these things.
So the point I'm making is we knew all of these things before.
Mm-hmm.
We've been told this. We've sat through the conferences. Like I said, we've heard the people speak on stage. We've watched other podcasts. We're like, oh, that's important. And then, you know, we bring it into the team. This is what we're doing. Okay, great. Let's do it. But we didn't have the capacity to be able to measure those things. So before we hired Steven, our data scientist. Now we'll obviously have that with Bolt Insights that's coming out, right? So now somebody said, what's the same? What gets tracked and measured, gets accomplished, gets done, something along those lines?
I can't remember the exact quote, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were just assuming that, hey, the call center manager is handling and the reps they know how important this is, but we didn't have any of the data to be able to go back and look, to hold you accountable. Now this is what hiring Steven, he's been able to pull these reports out for us so that we could see it. It's like, oh my God, it's incredible. So we've seen the efficiencies go up in the call center and the marketing because of that.
We don't use Builder Prime as our CRM, right? It's not built for a SaaS company, whereas a software service company, right? We're using HubSpot, right? And basically at this point, like there's 2 or 3 CRMs for the most part that a SaaS company will use, right? It'll be HubSpot, Salesforce. We struggle with some of these things sometimes. It's like we want to make improvements. We know a lot of these same metrics and a lot of these same types of targets make sense for us too. We want to have like a quick turnaround on the demo. We want to book same day demos and next day demos for the software. And
you have a marketing and sales funnel just like we do, but you have probably just different steps along the way.
It's different steps and it's a longer sales cycle. It's a different model, right? But there's still a lot of the principle. I'll go to these conferences and I'll learn a lot, for how home improvement companies need to operate, but also, a lot of those things apply to us. And yes, it's frustrating sometimes that you can't get some of this data that you really was like, what is our speed to demo?
Well, you know what you need to do?
What's that?
You need to hire a data scientist like I did to be responsible for all of your data. This is what people need to understand about the industry as a whole. I think we've talked about it, but I'll remind our guests. I've been fairly tech savvy, right? I've always tried to integrate the newest pieces of software and hardware into my business. Like, I think the iPad came out in 2007.
The iPhone was 2007. So the iPad was probably a few years late, maybe 2010 or 11, something like that I'm guessing, but I'm not 100%.
So the point I'm making, like 3 months after the iPad came out, and then they started releasing these apps on the Apple Store, I purchased an iPad at the time, and we were doing estimates on the iPad there. Now, a lot of it was you take a PDF and you got a PDF filler and you had to type it all in, and they could digitally sign it. You could email from it. So the point I'm making was I've been at the forefront of tech in our industry. So I've seen it all, right?
Yeah.
I think I subscribed to my first CRM probably around the same time, 2010. I used Zoho. I used Salesforce. I've used Market Sharp. I've used some white label, Go High Level. I've seen it all, right? And there's probably 6 or 7 others that I forgot. And up until this point, up until AI has been introduced, you would get a CRM that, well, there was really none built for the construction industry. So you had to, kind of like what you're going through, you had to make what was available work for us. But it came with a preset amount of reports, your basic marketing reports, your basic sales reports. And if they didn't have that, you had to take it and throw it into a spreadsheet, figure it out, right? Spreadsheet, or use their table and stuff like that. So this has been the reality. Our users that are using CRMs, even if it's not Builder Prime, there's no perfect solution, right? You get a basic set of reports and you got to kind of live with what you have there, unless you spend $1 million, $2 million, $3 million getting a custom thing built out for you with Salesforce, which most of us, myself included, and I'm sure most of the users don't have the ability to do that. So you have to kind of just work with what you have, right? And again, I don't want people to think like we're talking about what I had to do up until this point. Builder Prime was still the best solution that was available for this industry, the reporting that you could pull out. Even till today, before these Bolt Insights, now you're adding this AI feature, which is going to be incredible. I talked to Steven yesterday. He came into the meeting. He was excited. He was glowing. I'm like, what's going on, Steven? He's like, oh, I did a demo with Build a Prime. We're actually onboarded on Monday.
Yeah.
And he's like, everything that I've had to build out, he's like, 99% of it is going to be right there at Build a Prime. So he's like, I don't have to work in 5, 6 different places, right? To get these things. Everything's going to be pretty much centralized in Build a Prime. He was so excited about it, right? So up until this point, you've always had to control these different pieces of software here. Where the hell is this report? Oh, this is an Airtable. Where the hell is it? It's in a Google Doc. It's like, this is in the CRM. I need our users to understand, like, there is and hasn't been no perfect solution.
I want the listeners to know, right? We sacrificed building our own data science program and our own reporting so that we can bring the best possible reporting and capabilities to you. We don't have the ability to do the same kind of reporting that we're offering to our customers, to our home improvement contractors.
HubSpot's not building anything out like that for you, right?
They built a ChatGPT integration, but the data's not accurate. It's just not for that B2B SaaS. That's going to be my next project after Builder Prime, which I don't think there's going to be an after Builder Prime. It's like, I'm going to build out the CRM I always wanted for me.
You're kind of sitting right now today in 2026 in the position in your business, the SaaS business, where I was when I met you in 2017 in the construction industry, when you'd started Builder Prime.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have a CRM that's built for SaaS.
Are we doing something so super unique?
They're controlling everything. Some people are using HubSpot and making it work, just like I just described with my business up until this point. It's incredible.
Honestly, the specialization really is key. It's so important. Different types of businesses just need different things. There's different workflows. There's different operations that's going to influence the data quality. And some of these really large platforms are trying to be everything to everybody. And when you do that, you're sacrificing different things, or it's just not quite right. Even to the extent of like tracking multiple opportunities. So if we had a demo, we don't call it a demo no sale, but it's same thing. But if we had a demo no sale and then we had another opportunity with them later on down the road, we don't even have the ability to track separate opportunities. At least we haven't figured out how to do it yet. It's that same funnel. So we'd have to move them back from, we call it closed loss. We have to move it back up to the beginning of the funnel. Then we lost insight from the previous time.
Again, this was me in 2017 when I had met you. And when you were building out your program, I was saying this every single day. I was saying this for 3 years, 14, 15, out of 15, 16, 17. I'm like, I know this is important, but I can't find look, there was nobody that was doing the marketing, the sales, and the production like you were. And again, it was even worse. You've got your marketing here in this CRM, you got your sales reporting in this, you got your production over here and manila folders or spreadsheets. It just was crazy. So in this industry, you were really the first one to come along and kind of centralize the business into the CRM.
All three big, core components.
I mean, look, again, how many, before AI, I mentioned a bunch of these reports to you, like, hey, that's great. But like, how many different reports have you been asked for over the years? 1,000, 1,200? Everybody has different custom reports they want for their business.
And that's all getting solved now, right? So we're finally solving everybody's request.
How could you build them out before AI? You'd be doing nothing but creating custom reports and not improving the software. I think that's interesting how you're kind of going through the same thing in your industry with the CRMs. Oh, they don't call it CRM. What do they call it? What's the other acronym? Is it ERP?
Oh, ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. Yeah, I mean, when you start to get really large, sometimes you go to those types of, like a NetSuite type of system that's got all the accounting and everything built in. And yeah, but that's, you still need the CRM. I don't know that necessarily.
They're custom and built out for you, like a Salesforce, I would imagine.
NetSuite?
ERPs, they're custom.
You go to like really large corporations like a Fortune 500 and they're implementing tools like SAP. And those are like multi-year, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of project to actually implement it. And there's all kinds of customizations and custom development that goes on to these things. It's an endeavor.
You're spending millions of dollars a year just maintaining and developing whatever system that they have, the CRP.
These are like, Fortune 500 and those type, that tier of customer, right?
Before we go, do you want to maybe just give us a quick rundown of this Bolt Insights?
Bolt is kind of our AI umbrella, right? We're going to have Bolt Insights, which is going to be our advanced reporting business intelligence tool. We're going to have Bolt CSR, which is a customer service representative that's going to do appointment setting and your voice agent. And we're going to be adding on additional types of use cases to that. So this is Bolt Insights. It's the business intelligence layer with natural language querying built in. We have so much data in Builder Prime. Some of this stuff is really hard to report on.
I have 9 years worth of data in Builder Prime.
It's kind of hard to track your speed to lead and speed to issue and some of these types of things that we don't have standard reports built for. And you're kind of taking this data out and manipulating it and figuring it out. But what this is going to do is it's going to give you all of the raw data that but also make it really easy to build that all into these different types of reports. We're training the AI to understand the whole data model and understand what all the different columns are for. And when people say, this type of term or that type of phrase, it knows kind of what it means and how to pull that data together. And it's going to first help you build the report, right? So you don't have to sift through all of these different data topics and hundreds or thousands of different columns that you could possibly add to a report. It's just going to figure out, like, based on what you're trying to accomplish. Well, here are the fields that I think, to at least get started, and then you can go ahead and modify it from there and build out your report. And you can save it to a dashboard, or you can just save it to a folder to come back to. You can schedule that to run every Monday at 9 a.m. and deliver it in your inbox. You can set thresholds so that you can get alerted if a certain metric goes above or below that certain threshold, and you get alerted to that. So the ability to build these really advanced types of reports within the system is...
You can save them.
You can, yeah, of course, yeah, and then you can save them. So, but then you can also
a custom dashboard with them, right? This is what Stephen was telling.
Yeah, custom dashboards, custom reports, create different vendor disposition reports to get emailed out to your vendors. The AI is going to help you kind of build those reports much more quickly and easily. But then it's also it's like, hey, I built this report about speed to lead, and there's maybe a lot of data in there. Just go to the AI and say, what am I not seeing here? What's maybe not obvious in this data that would be interesting or important to know? And then maybe it comes back and says, hey, well, you know what? Actually, 64 of the 300 zip codes you're targeting are accounting for 90% of your business. Did you know that? Like, oh, wow. No, wait, I didn't know that. Right. And it's going to start to surface some of these things for you just by saying, tell me what I don't know. We're just kind of rolling out this initial beta phase, which you're one of the first few to get on to this beta phase.
Once this rolls out across the platform and it's available to everybody, who would imagine most of your customers are going to implement this, right? They're going to adopt this.
That seems like a no-brainer to me, but yes.
We're going to have our own little customized, I guess, CRM. Do different dashboards and looking at a lot of the same things, but stuff that maybe is more specific to the window business than the bath business. It seems like you're going to log in and it's going to be set up for the business itself. So if you looked at Builder Prime and then someone else's, they may be similar, but there'll be different reports and features. It'll be totally customized.
We may start to work with certain types of experts in the industry that have their specific ways of like looking at things, and they want to train you on these things, and it's just install their reports into your environment, and it's just there. This is going to be incredible. So we got about a month or so before this is generally available to our customers and new customers. It's getting there. I've seen it already, what it can do, and it's like, yeah, it's really cool.
Stephen, my data scientist, he walked in the meeting yesterday with a big smile on his face. He was really excited. Well, what's going on? And he says, I had this demo with Builder Prime, and there's this thing called Bolt Insights, and we're getting onboarded on Monday. And he was just so excited. And I was like, okay, because he's smart. And I just says, oh, this must be a pretty big deal. We're really excited about it.
Yeah, this is just the beginning. So
3 years from now, an episode maybe 200, and look at this old episode and be like, oh, look how basic things were back then that we were excited about.
Yeah, that's how it goes. It advances so fast. And sometimes it seems slow, but you look back and like, holy crap, look how far we've come in such a short period of time. There's going to be so much more that this seems even basic in a not so distant future. But for right now, this is pretty freaking cool.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it's going to certainly give you some looks and some insights that you don't have today, and it's going to help you run your business more efficiently and more profitable. So, all right, Johnny,
Good to be with you again. And thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in for another week of Build to Win. And we will see you next time.
Before we go, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We thank you very much for that. We'll see you next time.